out there and they're going through the actions. They're doing the actions they're supposed to do to have success, but they're not having success. Usually if you look backwards, what you'll find is they don't have good philosophies. They don't have good information driving the way they think. It's turning into a negative attitude, and they're taking that attitude and doing the actions wrong. Those actions are turning into bad results, turning into a bad lifestyle. So what I've always suggested to everybody, and this is real critical, what the Slide Edge is all about is getting you to create this processor so you can take this information. There's an abundance of information that's available. There's more information, again, today than there's ever been. There's more access to information through technology than there's ever been. And taking that information and making it work for you. But to make that happen, you have to have what I call, again, the processor, or you have to have what I call the philosophy and attitude. The Slide Edge is a philosophy. It's a way of looking at information and processing that information so that you have a good attitude that now takes those actions and turn them into good results. It's always been very interesting for me to see seemingly two very, very similar people. And I've seen this over and over in corporate America, small business America, and businesses I've owned and businesses I've run. I've seen people very, very similar to each other, having the same product, the same company, the same opportunity. They're being trained in the same actions. They basically have the same ability to do the same actions. One person takes those same actions in the same marketplace, the same product, the same company, and they have success with it. And the other one takes the exact same thing, seemingly the same quality of a person, and they don't have success. And what you'll find is if you back up and look at those two different people, you'll find one of them has based their life on positive philosophies, positive books, positive tastes, positive associations, that's created a positive attitude. The other person has made a bad, slightest decision. They have made a decision that information really doesn't matter. That the people they associate with doesn't matter, and it's turned into a negative attitude. They don't even know it exists. That attitude affects their actions. It's so slight you can't even see it, but eventually that compounds over time, turns into bad results, and they have a bad lifestyle. So again, really the Slide Edge has really been a Slide Edge evolvement for myself. What I mean by that, it's come from a lot of observations, a lot of things I've seen that work, have not worked. And when I started that company, that personal development company, and built that TV channel, my goal was to change people's awareness, to give them more access and awareness to information, and use technology to get it to them. As I did that, I realized that environment associations were as important as access to information and technology. But as I went through that process, and I realized really, quite honestly, even with people who willingly wanted the information, who were part of the choir, who really believed in the information, we have given it to them directly, they still didn't have the processor because they had been trained over time by society, by marketing, by advertising to look for the quantum leap. And that's what led to the Slide Edge. And that is everything you need to do to be successful. It's easy to do. It's easy not to do. What successful people, they do the simple little things that seem to make no difference at all in the act of doing them. They exercise those simple disciplines and they just do them over and over and over and over till the compounded effect kicks in and it leads into success. What unsuccessful people do is they make that simple error in judgment. They think it doesn't matter when they make that decision. They think it doesn't matter when they don't do something that day that they should do. Now, what they don't realize is that simple error in judgment, compounded over time, does make a difference and can take you in the wrong direction. So that's what the book's all about. It's about actions. It's about the processor. It's about the slightest decision. That every decision you make every single day does matter. As I talk about these decisions you have to make, one of the foundations for making good decisions is having good knowledge. Here's what I found in everything that we all go through. Everything that you become successful in or not successful in, at one point in time you have to start. You have to start the process. And what I found is anytime you're starting something, that's really when your lowest level of knowledge, your highest level of anxiety. And the goal is to move your knowledge up, your anxiety down. Just think about any time you've gone to work for somebody. Those first 90 days, you're kind of in the fog, you're in the clouds, because your knowledge is low. And as your knowledge goes up, your anxiety comes down. And here's what I found. There's a simple 4-step process for increasing your knowledge and reducing your anxiety. And why this is important to the Slide Edge is because the Slide Edge is about making decisions. And when you make decisions, it's about making good decisions. Good decisions affect your knowledge. Bad decisions affect your knowledge also. And the question you have to ask yourself, do you want to have good knowledge growing, or do you want to have bad knowledge? Your knowledge can grow. If it's bad knowledge, it's not going to really relieve your anxiety. It's going to create more anxiety. So you have to have, again, another processor, something in your brain that's teaching you all the time how to grow your knowledge. And so I've gone through a 4-step process. The first one is what I call learned knowledge. It's pretty obvious. You need to learn about whatever you're trying to do. You need to read the books. You need to listen to the tapes. You need to talk to the people. You need to learn the information. That's kind of an obvious one. But we have to go through learned knowledge. Now, learn knowledge leads to probably one of the most difficult ones, and that is activity knowledge. That is doing the activity. In this book, I'll reference a great philosopher. His name was Emerson. Emerson said something I've always thought was great. He said, do the thing, you'll have the power. He didn't say, I'm going to give you the power to go do the thing. He said, do the thing. He said, what he's meaning is you learning the activity. Do the thing, and you have the power. What most people want to do is, you give me the power, and I'll go do the thing. Or in essence, you tell me what exactly to do, and I'll go do it. Well, Watson, the founder of IBM, he said the key to success is to double your rate of failure. Literally, you have to fail your way to the top. But what most people do is they sit there, they go through learned knowledge. I've seen this so many times, and then all of a sudden they don't transfer learned knowledge to activity knowledge because they live in fear. Matter of fact, later on in this book, when you're listening to the reading, there's going to be a story about the funeral, and it's a very great story. I really want you to pay attention when it comes up because it talks about how we live in our comfort zone and how we worry about what other people think. And the story was something that changed my life many, many, many years ago. What it did is it allowed me to take my learned knowledge and turn it into activity and quit fearing rejection, quit fearing failure. Because if you do that, you'll never get going. And so learned knowledge, number one, you have to have that, but then eventually you have to turn it into activity knowledge. And here's the thing, it's interesting, these work hand in hand with each other. You learn something, then you go out and do the activity, then you go back and learn again, then you go back and do the activity. It's kind of like learn knowledge, activity knowledge, learn knowledge, activity knowledge, and you kind of step your way up the ladder. You can't just go from the bottom to the top in knowledge just by learning. You just can't study. And you can't just go to the top by just doing activity. You can't just do the activity and not have the knowledge. And so it's learn knowledge, activity knowledge, back to learn knowledge, back to activity knowledge. It's always been very interesting. I can take a book, read a book, and I can put it on my shelf. I can come back and read that exact same book a year later, and it's as if somebody snuck into my place, rewrote the book, because what's happened to me is I've gone out in life's experience has affected me, the activities I've gone through, so that I go back to reference the same book I read a year ago, it's different. So I'm stepping up the ladder. I can take the exact same book and go from learn knowledge, activity, go back to that same book, learn knowledge, and I go back to a higher activity. So learn knowledge and activity knowledge work hand in hand. And what that leads to, and this is very, very important for being successful, is modeling knowledge. What you have to do is you go through this, you want to model people who are being successful in what you're doing. You don't want to model people who've not been successful. And believe me, if people are not successful, they will surround you and try and convince you that what they're doing is right because they want to keep you where they're at. You have to seek out truly the people who are having success. I call it the laws of association. It's very, very important. You are the combined average of the 5 people you associate with the most. You cannot have positive philosophies if everybody you're hanging around with has negative philosophies. You can't have positive attitudes if the people you associate with have negative attitudes. You can't be on a positive slide edge direction if everybody around you is on a negative slide edge direction. So you're going through your learned knowledge, your activity knowledge, but you need to be modeling people who are positive. You need to be modeling people who have been successful. So the third one is modeling knowledge. And it leads to the fourth one. If you're ever really going to be successful in life, it's going to be your ability to inspire other people. Those are the people who really make it big in life. They inspire other people. Now, I've always had a saying, the definition of a leader is the ability to get somebody to do something they wouldn't have done if you had not been there. It's not to be a cheerleader, it's to inspire somebody to do something they would not have done if you had not been there. And that leads to the fourth aspect of knowledge, and that is teaching knowledge. Now, here's the problem. Everyone wants to go from learned knowledge to become the teacher. I'll study it, and then I want to go out and tell everybody what to do. But they don't want to do the activity themselves. What you have to do is you have to learn knowledge, activity knowledge, learn knowledge, activity knowledge, learn knowledge, activity knowledge, until you are worthy of being modeled. That's the key word there. Till you're